On Indianapolis this week, each party is setting their path for the future. A look at what's in store for the Republican and Democratic state party conventions. The push to expand the Healthy Indiana plan is getting closer. So does anything stand in its way? Our political insiders weigh in. And he's wrapping up his first year as the superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools. Today we're talking one-on-one with Dr. Louis Ferebee. Plus, in our Sunday Spotlight, the woman who helped tutor and educate a young man into a better life. Now her efforts are highlighted in the movie The Blind Side. We're talking with Sue Mitchell.
From RTV6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
But first, the nation's top veteran steps down, and the question this week, who will replace Eric Shinseki as Veteran Affairs Secretary? President Obama accepted his resignation Friday morning. Shinseki apologized and announced changes and recognized the extent of problems in the VA system. The VA has acknowledged 23 deaths nationwide due to delayed care.
I will leave it up to the Justice Department to make determinations in terms of whether there's been criminal wrongdoing. In terms of responsibility, as I've said before, this is my administration. I always take responsibility for whatever happens, and this is an area that I have a particular concern with.
Joining us now, two of our political insiders, Democrat Kim Tu and Abdul Hakim-Shabazz with IndyPolitics.org. We know that there are a lot of good people that work for the VA system, but is this VA scandal a sign that government should step out of this kind of health care program, or is it a system that is just simply overwhelmed with the number of people coming back from two wars?
I'll let you take first shot.
No. One of the problems is that there just aren't enough doctors in the VA system, such as the problem what they had in Phoenix, and with a waiting list of about 120 days and some change. But once again, we remind people that when you have the government run your healthcare system, these are some of the things you're going to have to do. It would be nice if veterans can't get in a reasonable amount of time, the government give them a private voucher, go to a private hospital, another hospital where they can get their care, which is something a lot of folks in the Indiana's congressional delegation have been talking about.
I think to answer your question, I think that the problem here was a very bad problem, one that we should all be ashamed of. Wasn't enough funding for the VA, wasn't enough planning in advance for the two wars that we've been involved in over the course of the last decade. So we had a lot more veterans come into the system, and we didn't plan for it very well. So that's on everybody. The president took responsibility. He got the resignation of Shinseki. I don't think Shinseki nor the president knew the nature or the extent of the problems of the wait times, and that's on them. They, as the head of the VA and as the President of the United States, he's responsible for that stuff, and he's just stepped up and accepted responsibility for that. In any bureaucracy, whether it's private or public, you can have these kinds of problems, whether it's a company-led or whether it's a government-led. And the benefit of it being government-led, we can put a lot of political pressure to fix it, and that's what's happening right now.
Another big issue involving the military is a push by Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly, who wants to stop the rising number of military suicides. His bill is now moving forward in the Senate. Do we need to pay more attention to mental illness in our country?
Definitely, yes. As somebody whose brother is a veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, came back home, is dealing with personal issues, we definitely need to do a lot better job. And I would give Joe Donnelly full credit where credit is due, with a bipartisan effort to make sure that when our men and women come back after they have volunteered and served, that they get the screening, get the issues, and get the help that they need, and also realize that they are not alone in that particular fight, in that particular battle.
I really don't have anything to add to that. I mean, I completely agree. Unfortunately, I know it's not great TV, but the fact is we need to spend more on mental health, and Senator Donnelly is doing exactly the right thing.
Let's stay on the issue of health, and that is, of course, the governor's Healthy Indiana plan, now in sort of the public comment stage. Will anything change in this stage before the federal government has to look at the entire, what we know as now HIP 2.0, and say yes, it's a good thing or a bad thing? Will anything change, or the governor's plan stay as is?
Well, I don't think the federal government's going to. This is just a prediction. Don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I don't think the federal government's going to care that much if Indiana wants to tweak the plan and spend more money to do what they can do without having to spend the money, which is just expand Medicaid. So I think that they'll approve it. I think it's a shame that in the hearings that we have, if nobody brings up the fact that this is a more expensive approach.
This is not a more expensive approach. You want a disagreement, now you're about to get your disagreement. This is not a more expensive approach. It is not going to cost the state more money. Hospitals are sharing in the cost, and people are getting better treatment. Now, there are a ton of doctors right now who don't want to take Medicaid patients, in part because of reimbursement rates, and in part because the federal government does such a horrible job, because Governor Pence is increasing reimbursement rates. Hospitals don't have to worry about getting paid, and people get much better care and much better service. And by the way, we've got about 5 or 6 years of HIP 1.0 to show people like the system, and HIP 1.0 works. So what we're doing is just building on a system that works.
HIP 1.0 isn't a bad system. I didn't say it was a bad system, but it's more expensive. And you heard in his answer why it's more expensive, because reimbursement rates are higher. There's no way for reimbursement rates to be higher and it not be more expensive. It's not possible for that to happen. But no matter, and in addition to that, they're setting up an administrative procedure where people are going to have to do more reporting, and they have to, for him to do what they want, which is called skin in the game, they have to prove they have skin in the game and all that other stuff that Medicaid doesn't ask for. So it's going to be more bureaucracy when it comes to those types of things. There's no way to avoid that, and the own internal documents of the administration say that. So for you to say it's not going to be more expensive is contradicting exactly what's being said.
And despite the issues you raise, will the federal government nonetheless say we want everyone to be covered,
Sure.
we want this Affordable Care Act to work, so Indiana, have it your way, because they don't want to see no plan in effect?
Well, the thing is, this is why I think that what the Pence people have done is a brilliant move, politically speaking. What they've done is say, look, federal government, here's a way that we can get insurance to 350,000 people, doing it under our way and doing it under our system. And if you say no, then they don't get it, because we're not going to expand traditional Medicaid. So if the federal government and folks like HIP 2 want this Medicaid, want expansion, people covered, this is it.
Let me ask you
let me say that I do think it was politically smart of this governor, as long as this governor doesn't get called out on the fact that he's only changing it and it's costing more money for him to say he is not doing what's happening.
Let's add on a big party. The Democratic State Party is having their convention this weekend. The Republicans will have it next weekend. Will these conventions have any impact on the election when it comes around?
Well, I wish they did. I think they're very important. I think that both political parties are important. I wish that Hoosier voters would pay very close attention to what's going on in these two conventions. I think that what's happening in the Republican Party convention right now and the divisiveness that's happening over there is something that people ought to be paying attention to. I'm afraid that they're not going to get a lot of press coverage. There's no fighting this weekend in the Democratic Party. We're nominating all our folks basically by acclamation. The Republican Party next week, we can talk about it, but they've got a huge fight for a treasurer, and it's really the continuation of the Tea Party fight. There are schisms inside the party with respect to social issues as well.
The interesting thing about the Democratic Party is you got to have an atlas to figure out who all the players are, because only one of them is actually from Indiana. I mean, I have more Indiana street cred than 2 of the Democratic candidates. That ought to tell you something.
I don't know what he means. I mean, he's just
Mike
making
Clato
stuff
from
up
Florida
now.
And Mike Boland from Illinois.
Mike Clato was born and raised in Indiana.
You guys want an Illinois lawmaker, an Illinois politician run your state treasury?
This is love.
Okay, good luck
Much
with that
more than
one.
you.
The conversation
He was
between
from
our
Illinois.
insiders
Illinois
continues on
plates.
Twitter, and you can hear me. Check out their handles, Twitter handles. You can give your opinion and stay up with Kip, Abdul, Laura, and Jennifer throughout the week. And they keep on talking. Guys, have a good weekend. After the break, he's trying to turn the state's largest public school system into one of the state's best. We're catching up with Superintendent Dr. Ferebee as he wraps up his first school year. Dr. Ferebee plans on making more changes as he prepares for his second year leading the state's largest school district. Academic achievement is his top priority at IPS. It seems that free food and preschool expansion may also help. We sat down to discuss the topics on his desk. Sir, on the issue of the preschool and the free lunch program, can you sustain those expansions?
Yes, we're confident that we'll be able to sustain those efforts. With the lunch program, we have an opportunity for a grant that we can renew. So we feel confident with the 4-year period that we are approved for that we'll be able to renew that grant. With pre-K, we are using reoccurring funding to support those expansion efforts, so we feel confident as well in pre-K that we'll be able to expand that.
Do you think you'll have to go to this? Do you think you'll have to go to the State House and ask the legislature, let's fully fund this preschool program?
Yes, it's on the legislative agenda for IPS and several other community organizations. I think that the governor's pilot is a start. We look forward to hearing more about implementation, but I anticipate within the next couple years that will be a reality for the young people here in Indianapolis, that they'll have access to preschool that will prepare them for kindergarten and beyond.
How key are these two programs to academic achievement? The ability to feed kids both at at breakfast and lunch, and then, of course, starting kids earlier. I think the question may be obvious, but it has to be part of your plan to improve achievement.
Absolutely. We know that we have a student population that has, deficits and prerequisite skills that are needed for kindergarten and beyond, particularly in the area of literacy. It's well researched, well documented that if students are able to gain those literacy skills, they're much more successful in kindergarten, first and second grade, and then they're reading on grade level by grade 3, which is ultimately our goal and which is a part of our accountability model as well in Indiana. And so we believe we're setting our students up for success when we provide opportunity for them to gain those skills in preschool. It's also an opportunity to learn social skills and prepare for school, and the research is really clear on how preschool can build the foundational skills for school. With lunch and breakfast, we know also that healthier students perform better in the classroom. We also know when students don't have to worry about when their next meal is coming from, they're more focused on their academics. So both of these initiatives are very geared towards improving student outcomes, but also the well-being of students as a whole.
You've also been a leader in financial accountability. You asked for 2 audits of the district's books. How are those audits? Are they complete, and when will you be able to report findings?
So we're in the final phase of receiving the formal report from both the State Board of Accounts and the Council of Great City Schools. Actually be meeting with the State Board of Accounts today. We look forward to reporting on the findings at our upcoming operational briefing, which will be on June 10th. And we'll use that information to inform our work going forward as it relates to how we handle our finances and what reporting we utilize.
Are you encouraged or discouraged by those numbers?
Oh, I'm encouraged. I think that we're in a better position as it relates to being more transparent and more inclusive. We're also moving to a more strategic approach to how we align our resources with our priorities, and that's exciting. It's also exciting to know that we've already got interest in our budget development committee. We have a draft committee that we'll share with the public. We've confirmed everyone who's expressed interest that was selected will be a part of the team and willing to participate. And we're going to start working with our community on developing our 2015 budget. But this is exciting time at IPS. I think you'll see a very progressive approach to the district, including our rebranding efforts that are on the way. It will be launched soon, and we'll be starting school in a couple months. And I think that parents will see a new IPS and continue to see the efforts of this administration.
Some may describe you as being a dynamo because of the amount of reforms and changes you've brought about. But with change comes fear. Right. So then how do you balance that? How do you encourage people to move forward but not be afraid for their jobs or afraid that you're moving too fast? Or is there such a thing as moving too fast?
I think you always have to monitor the cadence and the pace of change to ensure that it's appropriate and you're ultimately going to reach your goals and your targets. So that's something I'm always mindful of. But none of this is about Louis Ferebee. All of this is about our students and ensuring that our students and families get what they need. And so I always lead the conversations with that philosophy. And I think when you can put our students and families' face on change and initiative, people understand and appreciate the work that's being done. And that's how we'll continue to move forward. It's so critical that we get this right. The influence of public education is mighty. It not only impacts the students and the families, but also others in our city, and ultimately quality of life for everybody.
You are wrapping up your first year, so final question, what does year 2 look like? Do you slow down any? Do you go any faster? What can we expect to see you as you begin your second year?
I like to think in some cases, we've gone slow to go faster in the future. So I would see us accelerating efforts in some areas. What's good about next year is that we'll be entering our strategic planning process. We've gotten a lot of feedback through our community meetings, our stakeholder survey, our transition team report, operational analysis from the chamber. I mean, we've got a wealth of information that that we're digesting and synthesizing, but we'll then use that information to establish strategic priorities and how we do our work and creating a compelling vision for our future. And we're going to bring the community back to the table and utilize the input that they gave us to chart our course. Our current strategic plan sunsets in 2015, and all throughout this year we'll start building a new plan that will be launched between July and August of 2015. So,
but when I come back and visit you this year next time, what would you like to see? What plan would you like to be in place? Is it a new program? Is it better I-STEP scores? So when we talk next year at this time, what would you hope to have accomplished?
All the above. So we want to definitely see our graduation rate continue to increase. At the same time, we don't want to increase the number of waivers. We want to ensure that our I-STEP and ECA results continue to improve, and we want to ensure that our community perception has also continued to improve. But ultimately, we want all of our students to realize a year's growth annually, and we want to make sure that we're the best servants possible to our families.
Dr. Lewis Ferebee, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The actress Kathy Bates played her role in the movie The Blind Side. We sit down next one-on-one with Sue Mitchell about her passion to help kids succeed in Indianapolis and across the country. She was portrayed on the big screen as a tutor who helped turn a teen into a young man with a future in the NFL. Now she's using that spotlight to further her cause of providing education to those in need. Sue Mitchell was the keynote speaker at the School on Wheels Gala in Indianapolis earlier this month. Kathy Bates portrayed Mitchell in the movie The Blind Side along with Sandra Bullock. I had the chance to talk with Sue Mitchell as she raised money to help tutor homeless kids in Indianapolis. So how do you inspire people?
How do I inspire people? I don't know that I do. I just love people. And I enjoy being with people. And I like to communicate. I like to build relationships. And if that inspires people, great. But I'm doing it for me as much as for anybody else.
But how do you then motivate, because you're known as a motivator of young people, you try to get the best out of them. So
First of all, they have to know that you love them, and they have to know that you care about them. Because there are so many people out there who just, they're in some really tough situations. And so many of the students, because of whatever life has dealt them, they might be a little bit behind in school. And not that they're not bright, they may be just as bright, but they've gotten behind in school and they don't feel comfortable in school. And when you get that child one-on-one, that's why I love being here and talking to tutors. When you get that child one-on-one, you can get that child to trust you and to realize that you're coming into his life and you're not going anywhere and that you truly want to help. And you can give that child the courage to be a little adventurous and raise his hand when he's not sure, where he wouldn't have done that before. I think it's all about relationships. I think it's about trust. I think it's about caring. But I think that's about everything you do in life.
What do you tell someone who may think, I would love to do it, I just don't know that I know how to do it, or I don't know how to give that? Because that relationship, as you talk about, is very powerful. It is intimate. It does take time, right? There has to be a dedication. So what would you tell someone who's maybe on the fence and says, Sue, I would love to help with a young person because I know there's a need. I just don't know how.
Well, first of all, I can't tell you that I think everybody should be a tutor, because I think that you have to feel really comfortable with people, just like I don't think everyone can be a teacher. You may want to be a teacher and you may be really brilliant, but you can't teach it. But I think that you try. It's like anything else. How do you know whether you can do it until you try? And you try and you find out. And if you can't, then there's nothing any better. You're hooked. You're going to keep on. But if it's not really for you, then you find another way to help. Then maybe you support an organization who is providing tutors. You become part of that organization. You may be much better at handling money than tutoring children, but you find a way to do your part.
Your story was part of this movie called The Blind Side, I think.
Yeah, I think that was it.
How did that change everything for you? Has it given you a bigger platform to at least express the love that you have for education and young people?
Oh, it's been wonderful because, first of all, you know, Leanne called me. We were close friends, have always been close friends. You know, in the movie it appears that she picked me up off the street or something. But we've been close friends, and, you know, I went over and helped Michael, and we became very focused on Michael. Everything was about Michael. And then as we went on, and then after I got to Ole Miss, and I wasn't just working with Michael, I was working with other, you know, young men. And I mean, it just became so obvious, you know, how many Michaels there are out there. Well, Michael's doing great for himself right now, but we are on a mission. We're on a mission to make a difference. Leanne and Sean have a nonprofit. It's called the Making It Happen Foundation, and I serve on the board. And we are constantly taking requests. It's unbelievable the number of people out there, the number of children, you know, who do need help in some way. And we're working through the nonprofit to keep going, and we're speaking as many places as we possibly can to get the message across, because everybody's got to help.
Thank you, Ms. Sue. As we move on, a group of educators recognized for their incredible work this week, while some of them were surprised with a $25,000 prize. But Indianapolis This Week continues. IPS educators are $25,000 richer as the first ever recipients of the Hubbard Life-Changing Teacher Award. Those four are from Shortridge, Tech, Broad Ripple High School, and Harshman Middle School. Congratulations for all that you do. That's it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. Have a great Sunday.